In this video, I want to share some strategies for rowing a heavier boat, a gear boat, or a gear raft. A raft that has weight in it, something that's heavy. And this is a wide variety of weights. It could be a little bit of overnight gear to a heavily loaded raft. If you're running light, like a light cataract, a light raft, you're using speed, and you can make quick last-minute adjustments. If you're running a gear boat, you're using a momentum because the mass matters a lot. The boat takes time to get up to a certain speed, and once you have it, it's hard to dissipate it. So it takes a lot of thinking ahead and just a lot of skill to pull this off well. And the idea is if you're running a gear boat, you're going to, first of all, make moves early. So the first thing here is making moves early. If I'm making a move here, I'm thinking about it here. Whatever's happening here, I'm done with. My mind is on this. And I'll probably, if I'm going to push this move, I will slowly be building momentum to get me that way to go down that spot. You can't get here and then adjust because it takes time to build momentum to where you want it or to get where you want the boat to get it. And then it takes time to change it. Right here, you don't want to keep going this way maybe. You maybe just slow down a little bit once you're there to make another move that you want to make. In this example, I'm in a rapid, but I'm done with the part that I'm in. I'm now working on the part way down there. So my brain power is all down there because I'm past mentally the part that I'm in right now. Getting set up for that part way down there is really hard and the key to this rapid. Down here is the crux of this rapid, and to get to this position with this angle, this momentum, took me planning the whole rapid to make that exact move right there. So that's the first thing. The next thing is understanding tracking. You really have to understand tracking. In a regular light boat, tracking is a little bit of a factor, but in a bigger boat, it matters a lot. In a bigger boat, if you're pointed a direction, the boat wants to go that way. You're going to go that way. And this is where pushing really helps with heavy gear boats. You do like to push if you can. So if you're pointed, the boat's going to go that way. If you start pulling, you're fighting tracking. Pulling is an effective tool, and you will see in a minute you need to do it. But if you can, you definitely want to point the boat that way and go that way. As soon as you can't make that move, it gets to be more difficult rapid, there's rocks in the way, and you start pulling, you are fighting that tracking. You are fighting what that boat naturally wants to do, and that's a problem. If you're pulling at 45 degrees, that's the minimum you should be pulling. Like anything between 45 and 0, you're really fighting tracking. At 45, that's the bare minimum, and you have to recognize a lot of your pull is fighting that tracking. I generally, if I have to make a move, if I'm coming down here, same thing, I'm coming down, I'm pulling. It takes so much power to overcome the natural tracking. I'll actually go 90 degrees. And so when I'm in a gear boat, and if I have to get somewhere, I want to be 90 degrees to the current. And what that means though, is this downstream oar is now exposed to shallow rock. So you also have to deal with that. So in that case, I might be more like 10 degrees, 20 degrees, so I have less of a downstream oar problem. There's a lot of information here. I'm going to sum it up really quickly. Your boat, if it's heavy, really wants to track, which means the way you point it, it really wants to go that way. That's where pushing heavy gear boats really helps. But it's hard. You can't make some moves by pushing, and so you have to either fight that tracking, which requires a lot more time. Like if I'm coming down here, I'm going to pull the whole time I'm fighting tracking. It's hard work. Or just get 90 degrees and yard that boat over. And that's where this 90 degrees matters. Pulling 90 degrees is super effective. And if there's some sort of lateral here, there's some sort of thing you have to break through here, pushing is just maybe not going to work because you can't push through the lateral. And this is where more than 90, you want maybe 110 to pull downstream, break through that lateral. Usually what happens is you turn through some eddy right there and come down. So my advice for those of you that are rowing, work with tracking, try to push moves, but when you have to pull, try to pull 90 degrees to really get the boat to where you want it to go. And finally, you just need a solid oar setup. In our classes, and I see all the time, people have bought rafts and gear, and their oar towers are too tall, they're sitting too high, their oars are too far apart, they have the wrong length oars. And we row our students' boats at times, and it's amazing how difficult they are to row. And so having all your geometry correct is important. I have no good advice for how to do that. I have a bunch of videos about it, you can watch those. But when you buy something, as soon as you change one thing, it affects something else, it's complicated. And so the better your oar boat is set up in terms of its geometry, the better you're going to do. So just to recap all this, if you want to row heavy gear boats, really make your moves early. You need to think way earlier than when you're normally rafting, and it takes time to develop that skill. Next is you have to understand tracking. If the boat's heavy, it wants to go the direction it's pointed, and you're fighting that sometimes when you're pulling, but that's just part of it. Pulling 90 degrees is super effective. It's a great way to get the boat over to one side and get your gear set up. That's all I have. Those are some just quick tips on how to run a heavy gear boat, some things to do. There's a lot more to it, but that's just some quick tips. If you have things to add them in the comments below. I'm sure I missed things. I maybe even said things wrong. I mean, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes all the time. So fix the things I said wrong. If you have questions, put them in the comment section below. Let's make it a discussion. But here's my quick tips if you want to work on getting better in rowing heavier boats, things you can work on. That's it for this episode. See you next time.